Hey guys, welcome back. If you guys remember in the last episode, I was talking about trust and the trust that I have in my husband in particular, and how I lean on him and how he's just here for me for my every need. And we also talked about how I'm kind of navigating this trust thing with God Creator, with my current health challenges in particular. And today I want to just kind of slow all this down and explore this idea of trust and faith. Welcome back to Soulful Wonderings, a space where we are exploring life's lessons, healing through reflection, and remembering that we're never alone on our journey. I'm Heather and I'm your host. Before we get too far in, I would love it if you would go and subscribe to our podcast, like and subscribe. That really helps us out a lot. You can also head over to our socials and follow us there. It's going to be Facebook and Instagram, and all that will be in the show notes. Also mentioned last time that we are working on new things for you guys. I'm launching the Healing Lens series. That's where I'm using photography and stories to help you heal, and you can sign up for that. That's an email series, and I'm going to put the information in the show notes about that as well. So just take a look if you would like to sign up. So back to trust. Now, I can't be the only one that struggles with trust, am I? Because here's the truth. Trusting someone you can see, you can touch, you can hear, it's different from trusting someone that you can't. And even though I know God, Creator, has come through for me time and time again in my life, I still find myself struggling with control, with second guessing if I'm missing signs, or worrying about whether I should be doing more, to sort of be a partner in all this. Do you know what I mean? And when I think about kind of the everyday in my life, I think about my husband, and that trust feels steady. It's grounded in the lived experiences that we have together. I mean, I can point to countless times that he's just stepped in without me really even having to ask. He notices me struggling, and he's just been around for so long that he often just knows what I need, sometimes before I even do. Like I said, our relationship is many years old. Sometimes I think multiple lifetimes old, in fact. So he knows, and he supports me in ways that it makes me feel safe. And all of those moments, all of those things, we've built this foundation of trust. And I think it's probably easier because it's tangible, right? I can see his actions. I can hear his words. I can feel literally his presence. I can touch him. I can talk to him. And I've said this before. Again, we're working together in a lot of ways, because I can say, oh, I see this happening. I can now react and participate or do what I need to do. But trusting God or Creator, that just feels different. Even though I know, and guess what? I have story after story of times that God's been there for me, for us, that He's carried us through. But it's still hard. And as someone who's always had faith, and I've always believed, it feels a little silly sometimes to feel that way. Again, come on, girl, get it together. Why are you feeling this way? Well, because like I've said, I worry that what if I miss a sign? I wonder, again, am I supposed to be taking some action? And then, the big one for me, I don't know if anyone else has this one. What if I take the wrong action? What if I got all those signs, I got all the downloads, I got all the whatevers, and I misunderstood and I did it wrong? That one's huge for me. and look deep down, I just want to know that not knowing part is, it's just not fun for me. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I know I'm not. It's control, right? I want control. Why? Maybe control feels safe. Because, I mean, even if it's a shit show, I know what it is, right? And sometimes that feels safer. The truth is, I believe God, Creator, is in control. I do. But there's still a part of me that wants my hand on the wheel, you know? I think it's that kind of a just in case kind of thing. And I think that this is a tug of war that many of us probably feel. We say, God, I trust you. And then our next thought is, but let me just double check. Anybody else? My hand's high in the air. I know some of y'all's are too. Like I said, I think letting go it feels unsafe. Okay. Our brains are wired for certainty, whether that's conditioning or society, no matter what it is, it's still a fact. You know, control feels like safety. So in turn, trust, does it not feel like a risk? But here's the thing. When we let go, we also risk being disappointed, right? We risk things not really turning out the way we had hoped. You know, like I said last time, I know God's going to handle it, but what if it's not really the way I envisioned? You know, I don't want to lose things. I like my things, you know, and I want to know, damn it. And when we trust, we risk stepping into the unknown. And yet here's the paradox. The very thing we resist is what brings us peace. That holding on, that having your hands clenched so tightly around things, that's exhausting. Holding on exhausts us. Releasing brings relief. How many times have you ever just said, okay, and you just let go, and you literally felt yourself release a breath you didn't even know you were holding? You know, you said, okay, God, I'm giving it to you. And you literally open your hands and you feel yourself just sigh, just kind of exhale. And often when we finally let go of that hand, when we finally release, it allows for something new to come in. And that's where faith comes in. Faith is that bridge between what I can see and what I can't. Between the evidence I have from the past and those unknowns of the future. But hear me, faith doesn't erase fear. It doesn't. But it gives me a way to keep walking, you know, keep putting one foot in front of the other, even if I don't really clearly see the path. And both of those can be tough, to be sure. But the truth is, every time I've trusted and let God do his thing, I was never disappointed. In fact, many times, more often than not, it was a better result than I could have ever dreamt up myself. So now let's shift into trusting people for a minute, because this can often be a hard and just kind of tender area, right? With my husband, trust feels strong because he has shown up for me time and time again, right? But not every relationship is going to look like that. You know, I've had some people in my past that said one thing and did quite another. I've had some that, y'all, they literally broke my trust completely. You know, it was tough, and experiences like that are going to leave scars. And no matter how much healing we do, shadow work, all the things, you know, and how much we work to work through it, and we try to understand it, and we reason it, and we do all the things, and those are all important, and they help, they do. But even with all that, there are many times that I can't help but be cautious about who I let in after all those other experiences, because the truth is, not everyone is meant to hold the deepest parts of our hearts. Trusting people is not all or nothing. It's not. It's layered. And maybe you're thinking, what do you mean layers? Okay, for example, you may have one friend that you trust them to celebrate with you. All your wins, all your great things. They are the ones that they're going to celebrate all that with you. But they may not really hold all your secrets. You might trust a family member to help you with childcare. You trust them implicitly. They will take care of your child just like you would. But they may not be the person that you want advice on your marriage from. Maybe that's not quite their area. You may trust a coworker with a project deadline. You guys are great working together. You're when you work on projects, it's amazing, and you get great results, and they're going to be there for you. But when it comes to your vulnerabilities, maybe that's not something that you're really going to share with them. And look, all of that is okay. It's allowed. I feel like, for lack of a better way to say it, a lot of people have a lane, or they have a compartment, a silo. People use that. Do we still use silo? Okay, let's not use silo. But everyone kind of has their area, maybe. Maybe that's it. Maybe everyone has kind of their area of expertise, the area that they're really good at, and the area that you really connect with them with. But there may be another area where you kind of don't, and you may not really see eye to eye in that area, and that's okay. We're all multifaceted, multi-layered humans, so of course our relationships are going to have layers, right? So it's okay to say, what, I trust you with this, but with this, what, I'm going to go to this other person over here for that one. We're allowed to decide what we do with our trust, what we do with our heart. Trust doesn't have to be total. It doesn't have to be all or nothing for it to be real. So how do we decide where we're going to place that trust? Well, discernment can help us with that. That's a big one that can help us decide where and how we're going to place that trust. Because discernment is going to ask you things like, does this person's behavior match their words? They may be great in the job setting, but when it comes to you sharing something vulnerable, maybe there's someone who doesn't do well with heavy things, and so maybe they joke around a lot or something, and you really need someone that'll really listen and will really understand and hear you, and let you be in a safe space when you speak to them. So do you see what I mean? It can be two different things depending on what you're dealing with. So how does their behavior reflect? Often you're also going to discern, do you feel safe with this person? Do you feel safe and respected when you're with that person? That can make a big difference. And this is the one we have to remember, I think. Have they honored my trust before? That's a big one. If the answer is yes to really any or all of these, then you know what? Maybe it's safe to lean in. And if not, maybe that's where we set some boundaries to protect ourselves. Hear me, boundaries don't mean that you don't trust someone. That's not what that means. That means you've decided how much of yourself you are willing to entrust to them. I'll admit, I don't know that anyone in my life has all of me. Maybe my husband. I'm going to be honest though, there may be some parts of me that even he doesn't have. but very few. But I have these layers with different people in my life, and I kind of choose what I trust them with. I trust them fully, hear me, and I wouldn't trade those relationships for anything. But I feel like I definitely have layers to true trust with people. So, what about when trust has been broken? That's a big one. That's a tough one. I said, I've had a few of those, and let me tell you, rebuilding takes time. It also takes consistent action. All right, you have to be consistent about that. You're working on a relationship here. You got to do the work. But there's also that there has to be a willingness on both sides to do the rebuilding. And sometimes you just don't have that. Right? Sometimes the other person is just done, or maybe they're just not at that space yet. And maybe when they are, then you decide if you're still ready to give that relationship another shot. So sometimes it is possible. It is. You can rebuild trust with people. I mean, we're all human. We all do things, right? And intentionally, not, whatever. But it's up to you to decide how you want to proceed, and hopefully if this is someone that's important to you, they will feel the same way. So it is possible, but it will take work. Like I said, it's like any other relationship. You're going to have to work at it. But sometimes the healthiest thing to do is accept that trust won't be rebuilt, and to just release that person from that role in your life. And that's not bitterness, okay? That's wisdom. I have people in my life like that. There are a couple of people that truly broke me deeply. They broke me at what I would almost describe it as a core level. It was deep and it was hard. We found our way back to a friendship, but it doesn't look like it did before. And for a couple of those, I'm going to be honest, it probably never will. But that's okay. Because you know what? The people in this relationship, we both have value. We have value to the world, and we have value to each other. So we can care about each other. We can love each other. It's just kind of on a different level now. And that's okay. So, trusting people versus trusting God. Both are important. But I believe there's a distinction. Trusting people always involves some risk because, like we've talked about, people are human. They're fallible. Things are going to happen. But trusting God, that's different. God's steadiness doesn't shift with moods or mistakes. He doesn't have that. He's just always there and the same and always loving us. So when people let us down, and it's very likely that they will, again, fallible humans, it doesn't mean that God, Creator, has disappeared. It's just kind of a reminder not to confuse the two. And I believe trusting God can sometimes give us the courage to trust people again, and to do it wisely, with discernment and with boundaries. So what are some practices for building trust and faith? How do we live this out? Well, got a few practical tips, a few practical ways to grow trust with God, with Creator, with ourselves, and with others. First, reflect on the evidence. Write down moments when God, Creator, Source, however you're referring to Him, okay, or people have shown up for you, and then when doubt is creeping in, because it always does, you can go back and revisit those reminders, help yourself get out of that place of doubt. Second, start small, practice releasing control in small ways first. letting someone else handle a detail, or kind of resisting that urge to overmanage, right? Doing little small ways at first, kind of build up to bigger ones. 3, reframe mistakes. Instead of fearing, what if I miss the sign? Remind yourself, if I step the wrong way, God is capable of redirecting me. And here's the truth. I have found that the universe will work with us no matter what choice we make. So don't look at it as a mistake so much as we took a step. That's actually positive often. I took a step. I went this way. If we have to course correct, we course correct. Or maybe it turns out that was exactly the way we were supposed to go all along. Just take the step. 4th, name your fear. Say it out loud. Say, I want to control this because I feel unsafe. Naming it tends to remove the power from it. Because when you hear it out loud, you go, oh, okay. It's not so powerful after all. And number 5 is affirm your trust daily. It can be simple words like, I am supported. I am guided. I am not alone. And you can let words like that kind of rewire your heart to that more positive, supported feeling. Here's the truth. Trust isn't one of these kind of once and done. I've made the choice one time to trust. I don't know that it really works like that. I think it's more of a, how would you say that? A daily posture. Okay. It's opening your hand when everything in you wants to clench it tight. And you may have to remind yourself of that every day, or you may do fine for a few days, and then you have to remind yourself, because part of it is our conditioning, part of it is society, and part of it is just we're kind of we're rewiring our brain to think differently. And look, doing that's not weakness, okay? That's actually one of the deepest forms of strength, I think, is allowing yourself to open that hand, okay? And to remind yourself of it, and then having the courage to believe that you're held, you're supported, even when you're in the unknown. So perhaps ask yourself, where am I still gripping tightly? Who in my life has earned my trust? Where do I need to set firmer boundaries? And what would it feel like to release just a little and let God hold me? I would consider journaling on questions like these. I find sometimes seeing it in writing, can kind of help you work through it. And it also kind of gives you the opportunity that at times to revisit that as reminders, or maybe things have changed and you can see where they've changed, or you can see where you need to make changes. So that's it for today. I want to thank you for joining me for this lesson on trust and faith. And if it spoke to you, I hope you will share it with someone who might need the reminder themselves. If you'd like to go a little deeper with this lesson, I've actually created a free meditation on trust and surrender, because trust isn't just an idea, it's a practice. It walks you through releasing control, setting down the heavy weight you're carrying, and opening up to trust, both in God and in the safe people in your life. So I'll link download instructions in the show notes. Take it with you, revisit it often, and let it remind you that you don't have to walk this path alone. Until next time, keep wondering, keep reflecting, and keep walking your soul's path. Okay, so before we go, I know I just signed off, but I needed to, I guess I feel like there's something that I need to say. When I recorded this episode, it was actually, I think, the end of August. I usually kind of record these a little bit ahead because I mean, I do work a full-time job, and, I have to kind of work with my time and all to make these happen. So since that recording, we obviously had what I consider a tragedy occur, as, thousands of people watched a man be assassinated at an event, that man being Charlie Kirk. And especially with this episode being about trust and, the things I talked about with trusting God. After the events that happened, it just really gave me pause, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about Charlie Kirk. I've learned a lot more since his death. I know I had seen him a lot. I loved the way he could debate. I loved the way he could just spout all this knowledge, and all the things that he knew, and just how well read he was, and the way he was able, to just regurgitate all these facts so easily. I was always kind of in awe of that. But one of the things I was really in awe of was his faith. And not just his faith, but I guess his conviction in his faith. And after this happened, I remember hearing, apparently there was a time when he talked about what would he want to be remembered for after, he died, or even if just all that went away. What would he want to be remembered for? And his answer was his courage and his faith. And I also heard him say one time that, death was like a promotion, because that's when he would be reunited with his Lord and Savior. And so the events that took place just really made me pause. And it's not so much the event itself, it's been the aftermath. And on my TikTok For You page, of course, it was full of him, but it was also full of a lot of people saying things like, I'm an atheist, and this is crazy, and I just bought a Bible, and I want to go to church. Can someone help me, because I don't know what to do? And that just hit me. I think it hit a lot of people in so many ways. And the fact that his testament could speak to so many people, and the thought of how much more he could have done had this not happened. But would it have happened if he had lived? Just so many questions have come up. But the ones that have really come up for me personally, have been about my faith. And I don't question my faith. It's different than it used to be. I look at God differently. To me, there's more to it than, this book and these boxes, these churches, that you see. Those have importance, those have validity, but to me, it's gotten bigger than that. There's more to it than that. But I look at someone like him who had so much conviction, and I wonder, do I? And I just had to take a moment, and I've really been reflecting and looking at myself and at my faith and at what I really believe and what I'm willing to share that passionately. And again, it made me pause, and it made me really want to reflect on those things. And part of where I am is I'm still in the journey. So I think sometimes, I don't know that many of us would have, sort of the faith and the ability that he had to defend it in the way that he did. But I hope that I do, and I hope I would love to be able to touch people in a way that really changes them for the better, helps them become better people, helps them and think critically about things, and to be open-minded and to be willing to listen to another person and perhaps have their mind changed. But the way so many people changed and started seeking something real, something that they felt like they needed. It's as if it stirred inside of them, and they didn't know why. They didn't really know where it came from. They just knew they needed something. And they started gravitating and looking for God. And I can't imagine a bigger witness, a bigger testimony than that. So, I didn't agree with everything he said. I loved his ability to defend his stances, and I thought he was incredibly intelligent and funny and was doing so much to try and help people. And it really broke my heart to see what happened, not just because of the tragedy of it, but because of what it felt like it meant and what it felt like it was signifying. But to see the positive result that has come from it is actually lovely. And I think I have to wonder if he wouldn't be pleased to know that he had made that kind of impact. So all of this to say that no matter where you fall in what you believe with him in particular, you don't have to agree with him. In some ways, that doesn't matter at all what you think about what he said. But I would invite you to pause. And like I said, I know we talked about this, the episode that this is coming in on the back of. We talked about trust and things like that and ways to work on that. But especially with where we are now, I truly, truly invite you to pause and reflect and try to become clear on what it is that you believe and what it is that you want, to do the research, to start the journey, to be willing to change your mind. But always in that to strive to be better, to be a better person, and to be a good person to others. Hopefully we can learn that from this tragedy. So thank you for letting me add my little my little addendum. I don't know what to call it. Addendum. We're going to call it an addendum. So thank you for indulging me. And again, I hope you can find something positive in this that will help you move forward in your journey as well. You guys take care. I love you.